Hello, I'm Douglas Mooney. I'm going to show Space Mouse's alien creature that broke the window, the porthole. And I'm going to make the porthole, but I want to show you the tentacle of the creature to begin with. So I'm going to share screen here and we'll go to Maya. And here's the tentacle. I already put different bones in it. You can use the up arrows to go to these bones. We'll talk about bone setup some other time, but if you want to animate this, you can come along and you can set some keyframes. Just for this bone here, I'm going to do first S to set a keyframe. That just keeps that position. And then at 48, which is 2 seconds, I'm going to go S. And halfway in between, Maya renders at 24 frames per second. You can change that if you want. But in between, I'll have it move in a direction I want it to move. And you can actually rotate this bones around. So I'm just going to move it to there. And I'm going to hit S. And so you'll see if I drag this, it's got a movement. But just to that one bone, it comes up and comes back down. So as it's coming up, I'm going to go to the next bone over using my down arrow. And I'll have this one as it comes up. The other one will go the other direction. So I'm just going to hit S to set a keyframe. And here at 48, I'm going to hit S because I want them to come back. I'm just going to do a little cycle of this moving up and down like it's twitching, looking for something to eat. And so I can make this come a little further or rotate it around a different way, maybe towards us like that, and hit S. So I've got it here at that position here up, and then it comes back down again to this position here. And so we've got some movement of this tentacle. Got to watch how I say that. We're going down here to this bone here, which if you look, has no keyframes on it. There are these red lines. I'll go to 48 and I'll have this one move in a different direction just to make this thing twitching around a bit because it's a alien creature. It can come down here, maybe straighten out a little bit like this, and we'll hit S. And you can actually click on these keyframes and copy and paste them elsewhere so you can have movements later on if you like that position. And so in this case, they're going to move like this and they're going to come back to their starting position. You don't have to have them do that, but I like it because what I'm going to do is if I click on this bone, and I actually put keyframes on this last bone here. You normally don't put them on this end joint because it really doesn't control as much. But I do have movement on this bone here. Let me just go to 20. Notice this line here, arrow with the line, that makes you go exactly to the keyframe so you don't get a different one. And I can move this to a different position. I think I like it looking there a little better. And let's see how this movement looks. So it does a little twitch. It's just going back and extending. It's like it's probing the window. Could be tapping on the window in Space Mount. What the heck? All right, so here, if I go to my animation editor, which is up here under Windows, Animation Editors, Graph Editor, you can see the keyframes for this one bone, and you can select it. It says it's joint 9. And I think I have just 9 joints and the end one's 10. I can go here to curves and say cycle. So if I do that and I move this over so you can see, when I play this, you'll see the end bone continues to move, which is okay. It's going na 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 na. No, 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 no. Okay, so if I want the other ones to cycle, I can work down the bone and go up arrow to get to it. And you can see they're here. You can grab all the keyframes. You can zoom in and out on this with the Alt key and the right mouse. You can move up and down with the middle mouse if you just hold it down and the Alt key. And so you can see them all. And then we can come up here and go to curves post-infinity cycle. I sometimes like going to curves pre-infinity and cycle. It just makes the movement coming into this flow also gives a smoother curve. Now we won't see this unless we render frames that are before 0, which you can do. So this movement here, if I play it with the arrow, it's got 2 of the bones moving and cycling. I like that. Now I could cycle the 3rd movement, which is this last little joint, but I think this is okay. And I'll just leave it for now, just to show you that you can animate the bones. If I hit 6, it gives me a solid view with the textures. 5 just gives you textures. I use the sculpting tool to put some veins on this. And underneath, if we look at it in 5, you can see the suction cups I made. And I just used the duplicate special tool to move them around. And then I booleaned them to this to make it all one piece. And then so 6 texture view and 7 is the light view. You notice that I do have a directional light here, which I can move and you can see the light changing. And I do have an ambient light. In most movies, the ambient light's too high. It shouldn't be any higher than 3. I'm going to make it 1 just because I want the underside to be darker. See how dark it is? This directional light's not pointing at it unless you move the light under here. You can animate the light moving, but I think there's just going to be one light source, maybe from the planet or the sun, that Betelgeuse, or is it Betelgeuse, that Space Mouse was orbiting. So there's that. If I render this, we can render it as a movie, but I'm just going to render a still, and we'll look at it. And I'm set to a pretty large size. I think I'm set to the high definition size, 1920 by 1080. And you can see that it takes just a little while to render. So you'd have to have some time to render all the frames depending upon your reflections, your lights. Lights can take longer to render, reflections, refractions, which is how the light bends through things. And I like the texture. I used a leather texture on this to do it. It looks like he's got a little chunk out of his arm. I don't like as much. I could fix that, but I think it's okay. Space creatures could have a little chunk out of their arm. And so there's the moving. Now, whenever I hit the arrow to make this play, I try to hit spacebar to stop it because that's how Premiere and After Effects does. But this one, you just have to hit the stop button. And that's the wiggly tentacle. So I'm going to make in this scene, I'm going to make a porthole. Let me make it in another scene and then I can copy and paste it into here because this one's animated. I'm going to save this, continue. Normally when you have this all set up, you call it a bod scene, and then you can say tentacle move. That way you don't have to delete the animations. So you have your scene where it's all set up and you don't ever do anything to that scene. You always make a copy if you're going to animate it. A death scene, run scene, attack scene, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to go out here and I'm going to say File, New Scene, and say Save with this one. Using the student version, it's free for students for 3 years. And I'm going to make another video for the porthole, which I can post separately so you don't have to watch quite as much all at the same time. So I'm going to say stop sharing. And I'm going to say end. So take care. That was the tentacle and Space Mouse. It's attacking his ship. That's why he's drifting in space in this first episode. I'm going to end the meeting now. Bye-bye. Talk to you.